Good afternoon, everyone. I'm making a new video here today to basically explain what we're going to be doing in the C1 preparation classes that will be starting from the 19th of September. A lot of people have been asking, so I thought it'd be just easier put together a video and explain what happens in the classes. So let's get straight to it. So here we are with the first paper. This is reading and use of English, as it says here. And so we would sort of go through this paper in class, looking at the individual sort of different parts of the exam, okay? Each of the different parts of the exam goes through a particular area of language that has been examined, okay? And we would look specifically at those different areas in class, okay? For example, if you look here to sort of part 2, there's quite a lot of sort of grammatical sort of elements being tested here, and certainly we would sort of go through in class and look through what those particular elements are, okay? If you look at sort of part 3, word formation, again, we would go through sort of common words that come up, and there are common words that sort of reappear a number of different times, okay? Looking at how sort of different words are formed, adjectives, adverbs, etc., okay? And then in part 4, use of English, we would definitely look through this because this represents, for the use of English paper, quite a lot of points that are necessary in order to pass this part of the exam. So we would look through this part here, particularly in relation to sort of grammatical elements that are being tested. Again, there's a lot of repetition in this part of the exam, and sort of particular grammatical elements are constantly being tested and constantly being asked. Okay, so this would be one area that we would sort of go through and look at those sort of different grammatical areas. Okay. Now, then moving on from there, we're into sort of the reading part of the question. Remember that sort of part 1 of this exam is also related to the reading part of the exam, okay? And now we sort of have to be sort of quite careful here with the amount of time that is required to do these different parts, okay? For the whole reading and use of English paper, you're only given 1 hour, 30 minutes, okay? And we would try and in class, go through different parts here that would help you answer these questions with the sort of time constraints that you have. And they are time constraints, okay? You're not given sort of as much time as you want. You're expected to answer these questions within sort of 20 minutes or slightly less. Otherwise, you know, it's not possible to answer all the different questions that are in this part of the exam. So we would go through here and talk about, you know, what is necessary, what do we have to do, what are the key parts of answering this exam? The same for sort of part 6. Okay. We also have to consider the number of points available for each of these different parts. So that if we go back here, that we know that there are 6 questions, 2 points each. That represents 12 points. Here, it's only 4 questions, 2 points. And so these are 8 points. So we would look at the sort of number of points that you're getting in relation to the amount of time that it takes. Okay. So time management becomes important in this part of the exam. Part 7 seems to be a problem for lots of people. Lots of people seem to find this particular part of the exam difficult. And again, we would go through this question in class, looking for sort of tips, clues, help that I can sort of give to students in order for them to sort of be able to sort of answer this question confidently and correctly in the exam. So we would definitely look through this. Again, it represents a lot of points in the exam. There are 6 questions, 2 points each. So there's 12 points up for grabs here. And then the last question here in part 8, we know that there are 10 questions. Each of these questions are worth 1 point. And again, we would look through sort of different strategies involved here. How is it sort of necessary to answer these questions? What is required? What should we do first, etc. And looking at sort of what is the best way to answer this particular part, okay? So for the listening part of the exam, this is the sort of last exam question usually in the morning of the exam. Okay. By this time, people perhaps are a little bit tired. You've already done reading use of English, you've done writing. You get to the sort of the last sort of paper in the morning. Typically, it's listening. It's important here to focus. Okay. Losing concentration, I know it's probably quite easy to do, especially in sort of the nerves that you're going through, etc. But it is important to be completely focused here for this part of the exam. Okay. And so here in the listening part, again, we would sort of go through the different parts, talk about different strategies. Again, look what they're sort of wanting the sort of students to sort of answer, what element of language is being used. Okay. Each of these questions are worth 1 point. Okay, so for example, here in part 2, it represents 8 questions, so there is 8 points out of a maximum of 30. So this part here becomes sort of quite important in relation to sort of how many points are available. So we would look at sort of this part of the exam, again, talk about sort of different tips and strategies that could be used. Okay, and the other important part here as well is the last part. Okay, part 4. This is the part here which tends to cause a lot of problems. Typically, 5 people are talking about a particular question, but you're required, or the students are required, to answer 2 questions for each person. The problem being you're not too sure whether it's task 2 being asked first or task 1. So you need to sort of keep a sort of open mind. And again, there are various different strategies that could be used in relation to this particular exam. So in the class, yes, we would go through this and try and provide all these sort of helps, tips and strategies that students might need. And of course, here in the speaking exam, we would definitely practice all the different elements here that are being sort of looked at, the sort of introductory questions they're going to ask you at the beginning. Then we've got sort of the pictures that you need to talk about in part 2. You need to make a choice of 2, talk about those, compare, contrast, making sure that you're answering the 2 questions. So we would definitely practice that element of it. Part 3, we know that you have to sort of talk together with some other people. You're given a sort of a rubric, and I can't find it here in this page, but I'm sure it's somewhere. Yes, you're given a rubric here and different sort of elements in which to discuss in relation to this question, different strategies to use, what's necessary in this part of the exam, this interactive part. You're asking questions, responding, giving opinions, etc. Okay. And then the last part here, the part 4, which tends to be sort of a bit more philosophical, based on the sort of topic area from part 3, we would look at sort of how to answer some of these questions and what is required. Okay, so those are the different parts of the exam. The classes themselves are video recorded, so that's provided to the students after the class. The students can keep a file of that and sort of go through the class again, watch the different elements that we were talking about. Okay. We also set up a WhatsApp group so that people can communicate outside of class time. People, if they have problems or if they have answers to sort of send or essays to send, we use WhatsApp as a sort of main communication point. Okay. It's very easy to use. Documents can be sent if you're using WhatsApp on the computer. It's very easy backwards and forwards to send this particular part. Okay, so that's a basic sort of overview of the classes. If you want to talk online, I'm free to do that. If you send me a request, direct message through Messenger, or contact me using Facebook, absolutely, we can organize that. And we hopefully will see you in class, and hopefully we'll get you through the exam.